Every year in biblical archaeology, there are amazing discoveries. This year, I could think of something like 25 stories that would make for a top 10 list. And so for the last few years, I've tried to narrow down what are the top finds. And the way I always do this is I present them, I'm not talking about them being from the 10th most important to the most important, but I arrange them in chronological order. And so without further ado, I'd like to bring you the top 10 finds in biblical archaeology for 2025. Number 10 is the Thera eruption. It was recently reported in a journal that this is dated to the Middle Bronze Age. This is a big debate in archaeology about the eruption of the volcano at Thera and how it relates to the Middle Bronze Age and the Late Bronze Age chronological sequence. There's been a lot of reports about this. So this particular study seems to settle the case. And I do that with a question mark at the end because I'm sure others will come along and question that and continue to work on it. Now, this particular study looked at carbon-14 dates of a variety of objects, including those taken from the reign of Thutmose I and other pharaohs from the 17th dynasty. So it's a fascinating discovery that provides us an important chronological data about the Middle Bronze and the Late Bronze Age. Number 9 was a real shocker. It happened earlier this year. It was the discovery of the tomb of Pharaoh Thutmose II. Now, Thutmose III is a very well-known pharaoh. His father, Thutmose II, is not as well known, and yet he was a fairly important figure. In terms of discovering new pharaohs' tombs in the Valley of the Kings, the fact that we can still do that in 2025, some 100 years after the excavations and discovery of King Tut's tomb, is extraordinary. And there's all kinds of new potential about what this will do in terms of perhaps finding his mummy in situ, and there's all kinds of questions about whether or not what is existing in the mummies that are in the Egyptian Museum of Civilizations, if they actually can be matched up with the information on the mummies. And so it's a very exciting find that could really tell us a lot about the 18th dynasty of Egypt. Number 8, we'll move to the land of Canaan, move to Israel, and this has to do with a underwater excavation led by Asaf Yasser Landau and Tom Levy and others, exploring the cargo in the harbor that is just to the south of Tel Dor. As it turns out, there are a number of shipwrecks that are in the Tantura harbor, and they excavated 3 of these, all of which dated to the Iron Age. They have one from the 11th century, I think they have one from the 9th century, and they have one from the 6th century. Now, we don't have the full ship, but we have all of the cargo, and this is just a fascinating, incredibly important excavation, because anytime you have a shipwreck, it's like this time capsule. What we're seeing in these Iron Age contexts is very interesting, and it shows us the long sequence of how the kingdom of Israel developed, how it related to the Phoenicians, all within this harbor, just off the beach of one of Israel's most beautiful beaches. For our 7th find, we'll go to Assyria, and there's ongoing excavations in the city of Nineveh. One of the most famous symbols we have from ancient Assyria are the Lamassu, or the massive winged bulls that were found in places like Nimrud and Nineveh. And these are already massive, with the biggest one found until now being well over 4 meters. Well, this new discovery is 6 meters in height. This is an enormous statue, dwarfing anything else in its size. And one of the really interesting things is it seems to be roughly the same size as Gilgamesh as he's described in the Epic of Gilgamesh. And so this is really interesting in how we think about it. And if we think about giants in the biblical text, Og of Bashan's massive bed or Goliath's height. For our number 6, and one of my favorite finds of the year is the Assyrian tribute demand that was found and announced in Jerusalem. It's a very small fragmentary text that's been understood to be a bulla. And on this bulla, which is again found in 8th century or 7th century Jerusalem, there's a debate. It says, pay your taxes. And there's this issue of demand. And there'll be all kinds of discussion about what this means, what's its background, and what's its date. But the fact is that we have a text talking about tribute in Jerusalem right around the time of probably 701 BC in connection with Sennacherib, which is actually the most well-attested biblical event that we have, and now we might have a letter that's directly related to this story. Number 5 is what I call the birth of Armageddon, which is the report of a paper led by Israel Finkelstein and others dealing with Josiah's Megiddo. At the time, we learned from the text that Pharaoh Necho, marching against the Babylonians in the north on his way up to fight alongside of the Assyrians, and we learned from the Bible that Josiah met him in battle and ultimately lost his life, which was massive tragedy, the last gasp of the kingdom of Judah. But there's always been questions as to what was Megiddo like in the days of Josiah. Well, it turns out that we have a fort, we have Egyptian activity with Greek mercenaries, a fantastic find into one of the most important events in the history of the Hebrew Bible, which has to do with the death of their last great king. Now, on number 4, we'll move further south to Jerusalem, where it was announced also this year that the Pool of Siloam, which we had long thought dates to the late Second Temple period, it's mentioned in the Gospel of John, chapter 9, is not just a pool, but actually a dam which collected the water and kept it there. And based on the plaster and other aspects of the dam, it actually dates to the 9th and 8th centuries BC, which means we actually have an Iron Age pool of Shelach, or pool of Shiloach, that goes with probably Hezekiah's tunnel and maybe even other aspects related to the waterworks in Jerusalem. This is one of the most important finds of the year, and actually one of the most important finds in Jerusalem over the last few years. Moving to our top 3, or our last 3, we also have the analysis of the Dead Sea Scrolls using C14 and AI. And one of the really fascinating things about this is that they use all kinds of different investigation techniques, as C14 alongside AI modeling, to demonstrate that what seems to be the case, that some of the scrolls are actually much older than had previously been suggested. As one suggestion, it seems that the book of Daniel, which some scholars have suggested dates to about 150 BC or so, because it's related to the events associated with the great revolt of the Hasmoneans, or the Maccabean revolt, according to these tests, is much older than that, dating maybe even into the 3rd century or the early part of the 2nd century. So this is a fascinating thing, and it has to do with our understanding of a biblical text and its composition. And much more will be done on that in the future. But even with that, it could even be that we have that particular text, the text of Daniel, could have been written within a few decades of this particular copy. Number 2 is an ongoing discovery from the amazing scrolls from Herculaneum. These were found 150 years ago or so, and all they were lumps of charcoal. And they opened them up back in the day and found some things, but mostly they were destroyed. And so in the last couple of years, there's been what's called the Vesuvius Challenge, in which we've used all kinds of digital techniques to be able to digitally unravel these scrolls. And what they found last year was the location of Plato's tomb in the Academy. They haven't found Plato's tomb, but now they know where it is according to the text. And what they found this year was the writing of a Stoic philosopher who probably actually lived in this house. And of course, this is very interesting if we think about even the philosophy of Stoicism, and we can think of and connect this with the New Testament. We can think of the Apostle Paul when he encounters the Epicureans. So this is just adding way more insights. I mean, imagine being able to read these texts for the very first time after Vesuvius's eruption. And who knows, in the dozens of other scrolls they have, what might be there? Could there be the missing Little Iliad or other Greek and Roman and philosophical texts that have never been known? Our last and final best find of the year comes from the site of Bethsaida Julius, the real one, the one that's at El Araj, a work that's been going on there. It's the home of Simon Peter and Andrew, several other disciples. A few years ago, it was announced the discovery of a church that was dedicated to St. Peter. We know this because of a medallion inscription in the center of the floor. But in cleaning it, they actually found this year, and we haven't seen pictures of it yet, it's kind of hush-hush, soon to be announced, they have graffiti of a ship and of a net, which calls to mind passages from the Gospels in which Jesus calls to Simon Peter to cast his net on the other side. So this is further a confirmation that this site is closely associated and connected with biblical Bethsaida. All told, there could have been many that fit into the top 10, but these are the top 10 finds of the year that I've chosen out of a number of great finds. And it just tells you every year there's always amazing discoveries. They come in unexpected ways. And that's why biblical archaeology is fascinating and fun, because you never know what you'll find.